Left to die in the dark, Nara sat on the cold stone floor, her arms wrapped around her small daughter. The cave was silent. Only the sound of soft breathing came from the little girl in her arms. Outside, snow fell without end. Wind howled through, the cracks of the cave making the air colder by the minute. Her fingers had gone numb. Her lips were dry. Her daughter, barely 5 years old, had stopped talking yesterday. She just lay there now, her small body too weak to even cry. Nara had tried calling for help many times. Her communicator had once worked, but now it was dead. Her people had left them behind when the escape ship was full. No one even looked back. To them, she was just a widow. Her husband had died in the last fight, and in their culture, widows were unlucky. Bad omens. Her daughter was seen as a curse, so they were abandoned. For 3 nights, Nara had kept her daughter alive with melted snow and dry leaves. But now, even the fire was gone. The last spark died this morning. Her daughter's skin had turned pale, blue. She was slipping away. Nara held the little girl close and whispered, "I'm sorry." Her own tears had frozen on her cheeks. She didn't care anymore. There was no one left to hear her cries, no one to blame but the universe. She looked around the cave. It was deep, empty, and gray, a place meant for hiding or dying. Nara leaned her back against the wall and pulled her daughter tighter, trying to keep her warm with her own body. Her eyes grew heavy, her breath slowed. She whispered into the child's ear, "Sleep, my little star. Mama's here." She was ready to die. But then, light. A soft glow touched the walls. Nara blinked, confused. She thought maybe she was dreaming. But the light grew brighter. There was a sound, slow, careful footsteps, not loud or fast. Calm. She tried to lift her head, but her muscles were weak. Her eyes caught a shadow near the entrance of the cave. A voice spoke. "Are you hurt?" It was a male voice. Deep, warm, strange. It was not the voice of her people. Nara's heart jumped. Fear rushed through her. Was this a trick? A trap? Her body shook with panic. She tried to move to shield her daughter, but she could barely sit up. The figure came closer. It was tall, covered in thick clothes. A long coat. A face covered by a scarf and goggles. He knelt beside her and pulled off his scarf. It was a human. Nara gasped. Her people had told stories of humans, wild creatures, dangerous, but this one looked kind. His face was tired, but his eyes were soft, full of concern. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. He held out a bottle of water. "Let me help." Nara didn't move. Her daughter coughed weakly in her arms. The human looked at the child and frowned. "She's freezing," he said. He gently touched the child's forehead. His fingers were warm. Then he pulled out a thermal blanket and wrapped it around them both. "I'm Marcus," he said. "You don't have to speak. Just let me carry her." Nara's lips trembled. Her body screamed to say no, but her soul whispered yes. She let him lift her daughter, and with slow steps he helped Nara up too. Together they walked out of the cave. Outside, a snowstorm raged, but Marcus led the way through the white haze. Nara couldn't feel her legs, but she kept going, leaning on him. She didn't understand why a human was helping her. She didn't ask. She had no strength left. After what felt like forever, they reached a small shelter, a metal pod covered with fabric. He opened the door and helped her inside. It was warm. A fire glowed in a corner. Blankets. Food. A small heater. Nara fell to the floor, holding her daughter again. Marcus placed a bowl of soup beside her. "She'll need this when she wakes up." Nara looked at him, confused. "Why?" He smiled, gently. "Because no one else came." "But I did." She looked down at her daughter, then back at the human. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were warm. For the first time in days, she felt something she thought was lost. Hope. the human with kind eyes. The heat inside the shelter felt strange to Nara. For so many days her skin had known only the cold. She sat on the soft floor, her daughter wrapped tightly in the human's blanket. Her hands trembled, not from the cold this time, but from confusion. She had been ready to die. And then a human showed up. The child stirred, her small fingers moving beneath the warm cloth. Nerea reached down quickly, afraid it was a sign of pain. But her daughter's chest rose and fell more smoothly now. Her face looked a little less pale. Nerea looked across the shelter. Marcus was kneeling by a small stove, mixing a packet of soup into a cup. He was quiet, focused, careful. Not once had he raised his voice or touched her without warning. Everything about him was the opposite of what she had heard about humans. He brought the soup to her and gently placed it beside her. "It's hot," he said softly. "Let it cool a little." She looked at him without speaking. He nodded as if he understood. "You don't trust me, that's fine, you shouldn't. But I don't want anything from you. I saw your signal. Weak. Buried deep under snow. I came to check, that's all." Nara blinked. Her signal? She had sent a distress call 3 days ago, but it should have stopped working. She thought it failed. Maybe the ice didn't kill it fully. She looked at Marcus again. His eyes didn't lie. She spoke for the first time. Her voice cracked. "Why, help us?" He paused before answering. "Because no one else did." Nara said nothing. She stared at the soup. "My name's Marcus," he said again. "I'm not a soldier anymore. Just someone trying to fix what others broke." He stood up, took off his snow-covered coat and placed it to dry. Underneath, his clothes were worn but strong. She noticed his arms were marked with old scars. Not battle scars, but rescue burns. Rope lines, fire lines. He had saved others before. Nerea's thoughts began to race. This man had no reason to help her. Her own people had turned their backs. Even her clan leaders had refused her message. They left her and her daughter for dead. But this man, this outsider, had found them. She looked down at her child. The girl's lips were moving slowly, dreaming, perhaps. Marcus sat a few steps away from them. He pulled out a small handheld screen. "Storm's still strong," he muttered. "Can't fly until morning." "You have a ship?" Nara asked weakly. "Half a ship," he said, smiling a little. "Just a flyer pod, good for 2, maybe 3. Nara felt a wave of fear. If he wanted to, he could take her anywhere, sell her, hurt her, use her. She stared at him sharply. "What do you want?" Marcus didn't get angry. He leaned forward and looked her in the eye. "Nothing," he said. "I don't trade lives, I save them. I couldn't save my own crew once, I've been trying to make up for that ever since." His words carried weight. His face didn't flinch. He meant it. Nara slowly picked up the soup cup. She took a sip. It tasted strange, too salty, too human, but it was warm. Her voice softened. "Thank you." Marcus gave a small nod. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Nara." He looked at the child. "And hers?" "May. Pretty name." The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was warm, safe. For the first time in many nights, Nara didn't feel hunted. She didn't feel like prey. She was still scared, but something inside her started to melt, the wall she had built to survive. Her daughter made a sound, a tiny sigh. Marcus smiled. "She'll be okay, I think." Nara didn't answer, but deep down a seed of hope was taking root. Later that night, as the storm howled outside, Nara lay beside her daughter. Marcus stayed awake near the stove, keeping the heat steady. He didn't ask questions. He didn't press her for answers. He just watched over them quietly. In her fading thoughts, Nara remembered the old tales told by the elders, stories of monsters from Earth, violent humans with wild hearts. But in front of her sat a human whose heart was quiet, steady, kind. she whispered under her breath. Maybe the stories were wrong. And for the first time, she let herself sleep. Whispers of the past. The storm was gone, but Nara still heard its echo inside her heart. She sat near the heater, holding her daughter, who now slept with color slowly returning to her cheeks. Outside, the sky was soft gray and the snow had stopped falling, but inside the shelter something heavier remained. Silence. Marcus sat near the door, quietly checking his gear. His hands moved with care, but his eyes kept watching Nara and the child, just enough to be sure they were okay, not enough to make her feel watched. Nara studied his face without letting him see. He didn't smile much. He didn't talk unless he needed to, but he always moved gently, never too fast, never loud. Every step, every sound seemed like a choice. A man used to walking around pain without adding to it. He caught her looking. "You sleep at all?" he asked. "A little," she replied, voice soft. He nodded and turned back to a small metal box. "Storm's gone. We can move tomorrow." "Where? Will we go?" she asked. "There's an old human outpost about 50 kilometers west. Nobody's there now, but the systems still work. We'll be safe." Nara nodded. Then, after a pause, she asked the question that had burned in her mind all night. "Why are you really here?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He closed the box and stared at it for a moment. Then he looked at her, not with anger but with tired truth in his eyes. "I used to be part of a rescue fleet. Earth sent us to help small colonies after battles. One day we got a call. Burning station, 20. Lives at risk. We went fast, too fast." His voice dropped lower. "Enemy ships were waiting. It was a trap." Nara listened without blinking. "They destroyed our ship. I was the only one pulled out alive. Since then, I don't wear the uniform. I just help where I can. One life at a time." She felt something shift in her chest. Pain recognizing pain. "My people don't help the weak." "Weak," she whispered. "Only the strong. When my husband died, I lost my place. They left me behind with a broken child and called it mercy." Marcus looked at her with understanding. "Some people think strength means turning away. I don't." She glanced at her daughter, now resting quietly under the blanket. "She hasn't smiled in weeks." "She will," Marcus said. "Not today, but one day." They sat in silence again. Not the kind filled with fear. This time it was soft, like something old healing inside both of them. Then click, Marcus suddenly reached for his scanner. "What is it?" Nara asked quickly. He didn't answer. He stared at the screen, then stood up fast. "Movement. South side." Nara stood, heart racing. "Is it human?" "No," he said sharply. "Wrong heat pattern. Could be a scout, maybe more." Nara grabbed her daughter protectively. "It's them, my people." Marcus checked his rifle. "Do they hurt widows where you're from?" She nodded slowly. "They'll take her away. Or kill us both." Marcus walked to the small window and peeked out. "Then we don't let them in." Nara froze. "You'd fight them?" He looked back at her, calm and firm. "I didn't come all this way to watch you die." The moment felt unreal. A human was ready to defend an alien widow and her daughter from her own kind. She whispered, "Why would you risk yourself for someone like me?" Marcus gave a small smile. "Because pain shouldn't be left alone." He turned off the lights, handed her a small flashlight, and said, "Stay low. If they come, I'll handle it." Nara crouched beside her daughter, heart pounding, eyes wide. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing clearly now. This man wasn't just saving them, he was becoming their shield. Shadows from her own kind. Nara had never felt this kind of fear before, not even when the war took her husband. This fear was colder, deeper. It was the fear of being hunted by her own people. Through the small crack in the shelter wall, she saw it, an alien scout ship hovering low near the snow line. Its engines hummed softly, the sound familiar to her ears. It was one of the elite patrol units used by her old clan. Fast, quiet, and trained to erase mistakes. And she was the mistake. Her arms tightened around her daughter. The girl still slept, unaware of the danger slowly circling their hiding place. Marcus didn't panic. He stood still, watching the movement through a scanner. His voice was low but clear. One ship, 2 life signals, armed. Nara's throat went dry. They're not here to help. No, Marcus said. They're here to make sure no one survived. Nara's breath shook. They think a widow left behind could bring shame, that I'd tell others how they abandoned us. So they erase the story. Marcus looked at her. Then we don't let them write the ending. She watched as he opened a hidden panel in the shelter floor. Inside was a small tunnel, an emergency escape route. He looked at her and nodded. If things go bad, take your daughter through there. It leads to the frozen ridge. I'll hold them off. No, she said quickly. They won't show mercy. You'll die. Marcus checked his weapon. Maybe. But I've faced worse odds. Nara didn't understand this man. What kind of human risks his life for someone not even from his world? She was a widow, seen as useless by her own kind. He owed her nothing, and still he stood between her and the threat. The sound of the scout ship grew louder. Then it landed. The doors opened and 2 alien soldiers stepped out. Their armor was dark green, sharp, cold. One of them carried a scanner, sweeping the area. Marcus whispered, "Stay quiet." The footsteps came closer. Nara couldn't stop her hands from shaking. Her daughter stirred, but she pressed her gently back to sleep. Outside, the soldiers stopped right in front of the shelter door. Marcus didn't wait for them to knock. He opened the door and stepped outside. Nara held her breath. The soldiers looked at him with surprise. One raised his weapon. The other spoke sharply in alien tongue. "Human, step aside. This is not your concern." Marcus didn't move. "I found survivors. They're under my care now." The soldier laughed cruelly. "You think we care who found them? That female carries shame. The child is unclean. They are not meant to live." Marcus's voice turned cold. "Then you'll have to go through me." The soldier aimed his weapon. "You are not one of us." "I never wanted to be," Marcus replied and fired first. The blast lit up the snow. Nara flinched inside the shelter. She heard shouting, then another shot. Silence followed. Her heart stopped. Then the door opened, and Marcus stepped back inside. One hand held his weapon. The other had a burn across the sleeve. But he was alive. "They're gone," he said calmly. "Ship's damaged. Sent them walking." Nara stared at him. "You didn't kill them?" He shook his head. "I told them to go back, to tell your leaders something." "What?" He looked at her and replied, "That this widow and her daughter are not forgotten, not lost, not weak. They're under human protection now." Nara's eyes filled with tears. She had been left to die, then hunted to be erased. But one man, a human, stood up for her when no one else would. She whispered, "You're not like them." Marcus shrugged. "No. I'm just someone who doesn't walk away." And in that quiet shelter, surrounded by snow and smoke, something stronger than survival began to form. It wasn't just safety, it was trust. The child's first smile morning light spilled through the cracks of the shelter, soft and golden. For the first time since Nara lost her home, the world didn't look gray. The storm had passed. The danger, for now, had gone. But something even more powerful was happening inside the shelter. Her daughter moved, not just turned in her sleep, but truly moved. May sat up slowly, rubbing her tiny eyes, blinking at the soft firelight. Her lips parted. She looked around the room, confused, then focused on Nara. "Mama?" Nara froze. It was the first time her daughter had spoken in days. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, little one. Mama is here." May's voice was hoarse, but she whispered, "Warm." And then, she smiled. A tiny, sleepy, perfect smile. Nara let out a sound halfway between a sob and a laugh. She hugged her daughter close, whispering thanks to every star she had ever prayed to. Across the room, Marcus was quietly boiling water. He didn't turn around, but he heard it. The voice, the word, the joy. He smiled to himself and added something extra to the cup of soup he was preparing. When he brought the bowl over, May looked up at him, blinking curiously. "She okay with human food?" he asked. Nara nodded, wiping her eyes. "She's okay with you." That simple sentence hit him harder than any thank you. He handed the warm bowl to Nara, then crouched beside the child and smiled gently. "You're a strong little fighter," he said to May. May gave a small nod. "You smell funny," Marcus chuckled. "That's fair." Nara laughed too. It was a light sound, quick and honest. It was a sound she hadn't made in so long it felt strange coming from her own throat. As May ate, Nara turned to Marcus. "You saved her." He shook his head. "No, she fought on her own. I just gave her a warm place to do it." Nara looked at him carefully. "You speak like someone who's lost children." His expression changed, but only for a second. "I lost people who were like family. I couldn't save them. But maybe helping others now gives some meaning to it." Nara understood more than he said. She felt it in his voice, in his silence, in the way he never asked for anything in return. Later, Marcus brought out a small device. "This old transmitter might still work. If we can send a pulse signal, maybe someone friendly picks it up." "Someone human?" Naraya asked. "Maybe, or neutral. I've used these before." He placed the device on the table, twisted a few wires, and tapped in a short code. The light blinked once, then again. Weak, but alive. "There," he said. A whisper into space. "Will they come?" she asked. "Maybe, but they won't find us unprepared." The rest of the day passed quietly. May grew stronger. She played with a spoon, tapped on the heater, even giggled once when Marcus pretended to drop a spoon and said, "Oops, gravity's angry again." Nara watched it all with wonder. This man, this human stranger, had come into her life with no warning and turned the end of her story into a beginning. That night, as May slept between them, wrapped in soft blankets and warmth, Nara whispered to Marcus in the dark, "You've done more than save us. You've reminded me what kindness looks like." He replied quietly, "Sometimes kindness is all we've got left." Then for a moment, neither spoke. And in that silence, Naraya realized something. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. The choice to stay or run. The morning sky was clear, but Marcus looked uneasy. He stood outside the shelter, eyes fixed on the tracker in his hand. The cold wind brushed his coat, but that wasn't what made him tense. Inside, Nara watched him, closely. She had come to understand his silence. Each pause, each breath had meaning. Something was wrong. "What is it?" she finally asked. Marcus didn't turn around. "We got a signal back. Someone heard the transmission." Her heart jumped. "Human?" He shook his head slowly. "No, the code is from your homeworld." Narai froze. "My people? They're sending a ship." She picked up her daughter instinctively as if the ship was already overhead. "They'll take her. They'll punish me. They'll destroy you for helping us." Marcus walked back inside and placed the tracker down. "We have time. Less than a day. Maybe hours." Her voice was sharp. "We need to run." Marcus looked at her gently. "We can. I can take you to the ridge. There's a canyon with caves, I know, but there's a risk. If the ship has scanners, they'll find us." She sat down slowly, holding May close. "And if we stay?" He took a deep breath. "We fight, but you won't be safe unless we make a stand." Nara stared at the fire. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of death, but of going back. Going back to being nothing, a discarded widow, a shameful reminder. I don't want her to grow up afraid, she whispered. I want her to grow up free. Marcus sat beside her. Then let's make sure she does. They spent the next hours preparing. Marcus reinforced the shelter walls with snow blocks, blending it into the hill. He buried heat lines, jammed scanner signals, and turned the small pod into a fortress. Naraya helped him. She learned quickly how to watch, how to signal, how to load the simple blaster he gave her. Her hands shook the first time. By the third time, they didn't. Later, as May napped beside the heater, Nara looked at Marcus. Why are you doing all this? He didn't stop working. Because this time I'm not losing anyone. She stepped closer. You could leave. You still have a way out. Why stay? He looked up at her, eyes steady. Because you stayed. You could have let me face your soldiers alone, you didn't. Nara smiled sadly. You saved my daughter. I'd stay for that 1,000 times. The sun began to set. In the quiet, Naraya knelt beside May and brushed her soft hair. We stay, she whispered. We fight if we must. Marcus simply nodded. Then we do it together. As night fell, they sat beside the fire, their weapons ready. The shelter quiet but strong. May stirred in her sleep and reached out. Her tiny hand landed on Marcus's, and she didn't let go. He looked down at the small fingers wrapped around his, and for the first time in years, he felt something he thought he had lost long ago, a reason to stay. Not just survivors, but family. The stars above were still and silent, but something roared toward them from the sky. Nara held May close in the far corner of the shelter. The fire was out, and the heat core dimmed to hide them from sensors. Marcus crouched by the entrance, weapon in hand, breath calm, eyes focused. Then they heard it, the low thrum of an approaching ship. Not a rescue vessel, not a friendly call. It was judgment. The ground shook as the sleek alien craft landed just a few meters away. Nara felt May press against her chest in fear. Her heart pounded, but her hands stayed steady. She had made her choice. She would not run, not this time. Marcus checked the power cell of his rifle. Still time to leave through the tunnel, he whispered. Nara shook her head. We stay. Together. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss. 3 soldiers stepped out, tall, armored, their weapons ready. They spoke in her tongue, voices sharp and full of pride. Widow Nara, come out now. Bring the child, or we burn it all. Marcus stood and stepped outside first. The soldiers blinked in surprise. A human, one spat. She's under my protection, Marcus said firmly. You want her? You come through me. The leader lifted his gun. You dare stand in our way? I do. The soldier didn't get to answer. Marcus fired first. A flash of light lit the snow. One soldier dropped, stunned. Another rushed forward, but Nara, from behind the door, fired as well. Her shot hit the second one in the leg. The third hesitated, looking at the human and the widow standing side by side. Marcus raised his voice. You came to kill silence, instead you met a voice. The soldier backed away, lifted his communicator. We were wrong, he muttered. They fought back. Then he ran. Minutes later, the ship lifted into the sky and vanished into the stars. Silence returned. Marcus turned, breathing hard. His arm had a fresh burn, but he was smiling. Naraya rushed to his side. You're hurt. He shook his head. I'm alive. She looked up into his eyes. You stayed. You didn't have to, but you did. He touched her shoulder gently. So did you. May ran out from the corner and hugged Marcus's leg. Is it over? She asked. Marcus bent down and scooped her up, ignoring the pain in his arm. Yeah, little star, it's over. The next day, a real ship came. This one was human, Marcus's old distress beacon, hidden deep in the snow, had finally reached someone. The rescue team brought supplies, blankets, medical kits, and open arms. But when they asked Nara where she wanted to go, she didn't answer right away, or looked at Marcus, then at her daughter, then back at the rescuers. "We're not just survivors," she said. "We're a family now. We go where he goes." Marcus blinked, surprised, but he didn't say no. He smiled instead. And so they left the frozen lands, not as broken lives saved from death, but as something stronger. A human, an alien widow, and a child once forgotten. Together they wrote a new story, a story of trust, of healing, a story where love was louder than fear, a story where no one was left behind again.